G'day, I'm Callum Johns, and this is a different video than what I normally do, but I really wanted to talk about it because I just went and saw the My Hero Academia Heroes Rising movie. And so I thought I'd put my thoughts out there because pretty much when you want to talk about things, where do you put it? On the internet. So, here I am. Haha. So, I'm going to do this spoiler free first, and then you'll know when spoilers come up, because I will mention it. So for those that haven't watched the movie and want to be spoiler free, you can just watch this first part. That'll be good. To begin with, the overall plot. I think the overall plot is one that is very much, if you like the series, you'll like the movie, because it sort of continues on with Deku's journey to becoming the greatest hero. There's no surprise there, that was in the first trailer, so it's not a spoiler. And the ideas in it, I love My Hero Academia for the different types of powers that people have and the way it works with their bodies, and how it's sort of grounded in its own rules, which I love. It's really cool. And so they continue on that, and we get returning characters, of course. But then they also have interesting experimentation and some different ideas in this movie for the villains, at least, because we get the returning of heroes, and then the villains are also quite interesting in the ideas of how their quirks work and what their quirks actually are. And if you haven't watched My Hero Academia, quirks are basically their superpowers. That's what they're called in the universe. I think the whole tone of it, the whole genre is quite good, and the pacing is actually something that is very much like the series, but for the movie it starts off quieter, it's like easing us into it. It repeats some things that we already know if you've watched the series, but if you're just watching the movie, then it gives you enough exposition to be able to understand what's going on with the universe and how it all works, vaguely. Of course, not as in-depth as if you've watched the series and grown to know the universe from the series as much, but it's quite still a bit of exposition that when I'm sitting there going, I watched the series. Yeah, okay, they're doing that because if someone just watches the movie, then they'll get what's going on. And the dialogue, well, I can't really speak for the actual dialogue itself because it's in Japanese and I don't understand Japanese. But they did have the subtitles, and I noticed sometimes the subtitles were not exactly what they were saying in Japanese, and I think that happens fairly often. I heard from a friend, but I noticed it this time because I know one or two words that were like, especially one of them was like, well, that's not what he's saying, but translation may have some liberties with that. But it was still quite suitable to the universe, I thought, and didn't really break the immersion at all for me. The acting I found, I've always liked the Japanese voices, I think, as well. No, I haven't watched the dub, I should say. I watched the subs, not the dubs. But I watched some dubs, and well, they're largely well done, the dubs now, especially for when I was like Fire Force and Dr. Stone and stuff, which are on Anime Lab and they don't have the subs available on there, but the acting I think was quite good. I love the art in this as well. The action scenes and the art was really cool and really well done, and they had one part near the end where they sort of made it disorienting in a way, but you could follow along sort of what was happening, but they went with a really arty type style rather than showing what actually happened, which I think was an interesting way of doing it. And that was actually cool because I like seeing the nice animation and that, and of course they put their effort into it, although in some parts, some of the background characters you go like, could have put a little bit more detail in there. Of course that was just for a scene that was leading into the next and just giving some bridging scenes between the two areas of explaining what's going on. I found the colours really good, and yeah, pretty much I've enjoyed the visuals of this. And the sound design, I really love the music of My Hero Academia. It really gives you a feeling like the hero, the superhero type feel, while being different from the here's the Superman theme, here's the Batman theme, or whatever. It's actually got its own sort of feel to the music, which I really like as far as that sort of thing goes. And so overall, this movie's really quite good, and I really enjoyed it, although it's something when I go into the continuity. Now, as you know, if you're watching my channel more from Star Wars, continuity is a big thing for me. And I thought that the continuity near the end were a couple of odd bits and pieces. Now, I won't go into the details of that, but that sort of was like me trying to think like, okay, he's gonna do this, but then, wait, what? Yeah? They didn't really explain some things as well as they could have, I don't think. It could have been a simple thing for it to be corrected. But overall, this was a really fun movie. I really enjoyed it. This is also the first anime movie I've actually gone and watched in the movies. Because of when I'm younger, my parents weren't that into anime. And when I'm on my own, a bit more of a budget, but I've allowed for that. And I've gone, this was advertised quite well. And it's available here as well, because I hear about anime movies and a lot of the time I either miss when they're in cinemas or they're overseas somewhere. So it's really cool to be able to get to see an anime movie in the cinema. What I thought was interesting with that though is how the framing was on the screen. It looked like, when it's a anime, it looked more like it was, I know it's 1080p, but it's not widescreen. Like it didn't go right to the edge of the screen like some movies do, which I thought was interesting. They kept to a more 1920 by 1080. Oh, it'd be probably 4K how they're doing now, but the actual frame size was a little bit thinner than you get some movies like I went to watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with a bunch of friends that was filmed in 35mm, and of course it's because of the animation that this wouldn't be the same sizing, but I thought it was interesting to note that. So I guess without further ado, the spoilers and the stuff that I would say detracted from it a little bit, even though it was really overall really fun and enjoyable, and I just liked watching an anime movie in the cinema for a change. It was really good. So what I thought was a bit odd is, well, the first interesting thing was that the main villain was actually compatible with All For One's quirk factor, which I thought was interesting. And if you don't know, All For One is the antithesis to One For All, which was passed down to Izuku Midoriya, which is Deku, the main character and protagonist we follow through the series and the movies. And I thought that was a cool part where, like, okay, let's start pitting Deku against a mini All For One villain sort of thing, and I thought that could be really interesting in how it turns out. And then I'll go chronologically. When they fight the... Now I can't remember the villain's name. The names aren't as memorable, because they get defeated in one movie and whatever, compared to some of the series villains, which carry on for a few episodes and you get to understand the story a bit more. And of course they give a good background to the story and everything, so that's good. But the thing that was interesting is that he was saying that Deku had the potential to have multiple quirks, which I thought was an interesting point to make, because a lot of the time people just have one quirk in the universe, and so I was like, are they planning to pick that up in something in the future of the series? I also haven't read the manga, so I don't know what happens in the manga if Deku gets to develop an extra quirk rather than just a superpower quirk. But it makes sense that he has the superpower quirk first because of his obsession with All Might and wanting to be like him, and so subconsciously his body was like, let's create the superpower quirk. And so that gets to the part where we get to the ending, which is the big thing for what I thought was a little bit odd. It was the part where Deku passes on One For All to Bakugo, or Kachan as he nicknames him, which was a really cool moment. I thought, great decision, and then Midoriya has to have one for all. So then I was like, okay, as I was watching it, I was thinking, okay, then Callum will be like, I don't want to rely on your one for all power, I'm giving it back to you, sort of thing. And that would have been good. But the thing that was odd was that they didn't really explain it. Like, Bakugo could have still passed it on to him at one point, but they're both knocked out, so it wasn't possible. And so they tried to say it naturally went back to Deku, and I'm like, what happened there? It sort of wiped Bakugo's mind of what happened and then went back to Midori. I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. Okay, I guess, but I think it detracted a bit from the movie when they could have just had a part where Bakugo wants to rely on his own power rather than being passed on to One For All, especially since he already has a quirk. It was really awesome to see him using the quirk with the extra power from One For All. And then we could have, because One For All picks up all the quirks from the people beforehand. I don't know, manifests differently in each of them, but have it so that Deku can maybe have something more manifest because it passed through Callum and then back to him. That could have been interesting. But anyway, speculation. The other thing I thought was a bit odd about that part was that Bakugo exhibits the same sort of quirk, the superpower quirk, when he receives One For All as Deku does. Right? It just changes the lightning shape and then it's the same. And I'm like, really? It's shown from All Might and then onto Deku, and it's explained that One For All manifests itself differently in each user of One For All that it's passed on to. And so I was like, shouldn't it be more connected to Bakugo's quirk that is explosives? Like, should it just enhance that, or should it just be something different rather than copycatting Deku? Although I guess they're trying to say that they were both quite similar and they both wanted to fight for the same thing basically. They just had a different rationale and pathway they took, and they were both liked All Might. But I still think there could have been an opportunity to show One For All acting differently, which I thought would have been better. Other than that, I think the movie was really good, and those were just some odd parts I thought, really? They could have written that a little bit better in my opinion, and done something a little bit different, and they could have had some fun with it. But I don't know how the manga goes, of course, and we will see what happens as the series progresses as well. If you're watching along, of course, that's but like, I'm watching the series as well. And also, yeah, thinking of that actually, this seems to be set after the latest season, before the latest season has fully started coming out, because Deku can do his flick shots with his air pockets. And I'm like, wouldn't it have been better to release the movie a little bit later, once that season has been aired, and then you get the movie for in between the seasons, and then you go on to the next season? It's got Deku using those shots a lot more proficiently than he currently is in the series. So that shows me that his progression is a bit further along in the timeline. I just thought it was a little bit odd to release it before that season of the anime had finished, and it would have been better for timing. And what I want to make sure I highlight is what I really love about the movie My Hero Academia Heroes Rising. So what I really liked first off was that it put the class of 1A, a class that we're following, of course, with the Deku's in, it's all our familiar characters. They actually put on an island for a commission to actually do some proper hero work. And it's really cool because they put them on this island and they go, oh, this is not going to have a villain in it, but ultimately, of course, it does. But it's really cool because you get to see the heroes doing some more normal hero work, like some more minor work, I should say. And that's really cool to see, like rescuing cats and dogs, helping a granny that threw her back out, That sort of thing is really cool. Oh, of course, charging batteries. How can we forget? Charge Zuma! Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool, and I love that aspect of it as well. And then we go on to the villains appearing and everything, and then the final battle, the climax. I love climaxes. You can quote me on it. But I love the climax of the story. And what I really loved about this movie in particular is that every student had their part to play in trying to take down the villains. And everyone had an important role, and everyone got screen time, which was great. And I really loved how that all came together in the end. And really, it evenly played out. Of course, the focus is on Deku as a protagonist, but it really evenly played out, a lot of it, with a focus on Deku and Bakugo for what's going on there, which is actually really cool, and I really enjoyed that part of it. And I guess that's where the strength lies, is like, everyone gets their shots, and then everyone gets their time on the screen and ability to be able to use their quirks where they can, and I think it's really cool, and I really enjoyed it. That's the way it goes. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the My Hero Academia, the movie. I don't know why they have to call it the movie, but anyway. My Hero Academia Heroes Rising. So yeah, if you've watched it, what do you think? And I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts about it. So thank you guys for watching. I'm going to do other random sort of talks about, like, of course, also I'm going to be talking about the Battle Angel Leader manga at one point. I'm actually going to record this soon after this, and I'm going to work out when I'm going to schedule it. And I'll probably talk a little bit more about some things that stand out to me. Like, movies are obviously a bit bigger than the series as a season by season thing. I don't talk about anime too much. My backbone is Star Wars Expanded Universe, of course, and I've gotten into anime as well and talking about that. But yeah, you can have a look at my channel anyway for other content. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk about anime on live streams if you ask about it, and if someone wants me to give thoughts on something, I will. As long as it's within my power, of course. Like something I've watched, or something people want me to watch, or something that was on my list already. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this thoughts on My Hero Academia Heroes Rising, and I'll see you in the next video. Uru! Why are people trying to message me? Right. Why is the white balance changing on the camera? Oh, whatever.